up, musicologists? Welcome to Amari Music Talk. I'm Richard Cole. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're a long-time listener, welcome back. All right, so today was the official announcement for the remastered Around the World in a Day, the classic Prince 1985 album. You know, it was like he was kind of getting tired of Purple Rain. He didn't want to fall into the trap that Michael fell in with Thriller, and was like, hey, let me up out of here. Let me do this album. Let me drop it while Purple Rain still got some momentum, and took fans completely on a whole new journey. Started mixing in some psychedelic sounds, started using some Beatles, some Led Zeppelin sounds in it, and really challenged our expectations way back in 1985. It was an album that really let me know, from this point forward, you're not getting the same Prince album twice. But yeah, this is getting released November 21st, and I'm going to talk about exactly what it is that we are getting, and I'm just going to kind of share some thoughts about, you know, is this a good thing, or could the estate have done better? But we're not going to, you know, do any estate bashing or finger pointing or blaming this and that. This kind of speaks to a bigger picture, but like I said, I'll touch on it a little bit after we talk about the purple goodness we're getting and how many purple croutons you're going to need to get what you want. All right, so this is from the official Prince website. This is Prince's 7th studio album, Around the World in a Day. Returns on November 21st of 2025 in a stunning new remaster. Originally released in 1985 as the follow-up to Purple Rain, the album saw Prince and the Revolution venture into bold new territory, blending psychedelic textures, adventurous instrumentation, and unforgettable singles like Raspberry Beret, Pop Life, and Paisley Park. All right, fully remastered by original mastering engineer Bernie Grundman, with additional mastering by Chris James. This definitive edition is available on CD and vinyl, including black, blue marble, and a picture disc exclusive to the official Prince store. Fans can also explore the deluxe editions, available as a 2 CD set, or expansive 3 LP collection, which pair the remastered album with a wealth of B-sides, extended mixes, and rarities such as She's Always in My Hair, Hello, Fresh Dance Mix, Girl, and the nearly 22-minute America 12-inch version, making its CD debut. All right, so like I said, not quite the super deluxe box set that we've been used to with, say, 1999, Sign of the Times, Diamonds and Pearls. Like I said, it speaks to a larger picture, but again, let's kind of talk about what you're getting, what's it going to cost, and things of that nature. So let's start with the picture disc. So it's Around the World in a Day, 1 LP picture disc. That is going to run $39.98 in United States dollars. You also have the Around the World in a Day. It's going to be, again, 1 LP, but it's in blue marble, the vinyl, and it's 140 gram vinyl. And that's going to run $27.98 in US dollars. From there, you've got the Around the World in a Day Deluxe Edition. That's 3 LPs, and that's also going to be in 140 gram vinyl. Your cost for that's going to be $49.98 in American dollars. And then you've got the Around the World in a Day, which is the original album remastered, and that's going to be $26.98 American dollars. Then you have the 2 CD Deluxe Edition, and that's going to be $21.98 US dollars. And the original Around the World in a Day album remastered on CD, $15.98 in American dollars. All right. So, question is, are you excited about this? Like I said, this was my most anticipated anything, not just Prince project. I've done episodes in the past where I always said that if you had an Around the World in a Day box set, that whatever extras you include, which would be, say, Prince's guide vocals to the stuff that's on the Family album. That's a start. Maybe some of the stuff that ended up on Romance 1600, maybe some of that stuff, which we got a taste of with Dear Michelangelo, which is on Prince Originals. So, again, of course, with the B-side, She's Always in My Hair. You got Hello, you got Girl. Those, again, would be, to me, I always thought that would, in a way, rival a Parade Super Deluxe. Now, a Parade Super Deluxe would be more eclectic because it just goes in so many different directions. Plus, it was also music for film. But we're not getting an Around the World in a Day box set. And I know there was some confusion. And I know I kind of reported on it. And of course, I always say anything that doesn't come from the Prince estate or Sony Legacy or Warner Brothers should be taken with a grain of salt. But unfortunately, all that hype during Celebration, it was announced that they were shying away from Super Deluxe editions in some cases. The Around the World in a Day was announced not as a box set, although I think someone later that said that they were in attendance, said it was going to be a Super Deluxe edition. During the announcement today, Charles Spicer got on and said that it was absolutely never going to be a box set for Around the World in a Day. So that kind of cleared up a lot of the confusion. But in that confusion, I know me personally was like, oh man, Around the World in a Day box set, I can't wait. So, yeah, I'm a little disappointed that it's not a box set, but I'm okay with that. I know there's a lot of chatter like, oh, well, it's just the album and the B-sides. Some was, saying that, yeah, it wasn't what they expected, but at least you get all the B-sides together on one disc, or you get them all together in the same place, and you don't have to go get this compilation to listen to this. You don't have to get this compilation to listen to something else. You don't have to dust off your old vinyl to listen to this 12-inch of Raspberry Beret and so on. But this really speaks as a larger narrative. Basically, this world that we live in now. There's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of us like to kind of play armchair quarterback, or in this case, armchair record executive, or, Sunday morning, executor of the estate. But, it's not that simple. It's not that simple. And the Prince estate, this isn't the first estate to go through, whether it's growing pains or changes. But what I think is unique, and I'm going to address this, I was going to work on some videos. It's a 2-part. I may expand it to 3 parts. And in relationship to Prince and the Beatles, I think right now those are the 2 legacy artists whose back catalog over the last few years has run across some controversy, while, artists that are legendary, but that don't necessarily have the mainstream appeal, Or you've got like a Bruce Springsteen or Bob Dylan that consistently caters to its fan base. But like I said, I'll address it in a deeper form. But I think just kind of touching the surface, these two camps are really trying to go out of their way to, I guess, address, or pull in younger fans or pull in the mainstream fans, or capture mainstream attention. Like, okay, fine, you've heard of Prince, but, fine, you may not be into the super deluxe edition the way the fans are. But at the same time, it's like, well, your first generation, your second generation, and trust me, we're nowhere near the point of, say, Beatles or Hendrix or Led Zeppelin or the Rolling Stones, whose fan base, as each year passes, is starting to age out of the market. So I don't know if the Beatles are being premature. I think on the Prince side, definitely. But again, we'll cover it deeper. But I'll say that part of the problem with the Prince estate is that you don't have a unified body. You got people running it, and there was a regime change. But I think the fundamental difference with this is that even if you did have, say, different entities or different people that can make decisions or vote on or decide on, hey, we're going to put this out or we're not going to put that out. I think we're running into a situation where here you've got so many hands in the mix. Yeah, there's a single figurehead that's running it and maybe calling the shots. But you also have this entity, say with Primary Wave, whose interest isn't in anything regarding the music industry. It's in the IP as a whole, or intellectual property as a whole, meaning anything that they hold the copyright, the trademark, whatever rights, publishing, master recordings, all of that stuff, that you have to make decisions on putting out records and dealing with the music industry. You've got basically nearly 50% with a company that's not their interest. Their interest is, how do you keep the intellectual property going in a technologically evolving society? Which means that it's not about records. Okay, maybe streaming might be a part of it, but you also, it's like, oh, well, how do we, put Prince's image on coffee mugs, or how do we put Prince's image and symbols and likenesses? How do we put that in a commercial to sell soap? Or how do we sell credit cards? Or how, I'm drawing a blank. Like, how do, movies, like take the case of how we, put Prince's music in a romantic comedy. I just saw a trailer just yesterday with Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson. And it's about this guy. I guess he's like a Neil Diamond impersonator, but they've made the movie, or the producers of the film, made these arrangements with Neil Diamond, who's not in the position to perform, because of declining health, and keep his music going. His granted the rights to his music to be used in this, I guess it's a romantic comedy, I guess, in a way. So to put it in this rom-com, and you've seen this before. There was a Christmas movie with George Michael's music in it. There was the film Yesterday, which utilized the music of the Beatles. So that's Primary Wave's job, is like, oh, well, how do we develop a project like that? Or the Purple Rain Broadway thing that's coming up. Those things, that's their job. So, like I said, there's so many different hands. And then even, like I said, you got somebody running it. There's still people fighting and suing to get, for control or to keep their voice relevant in it. Regardless if their ideas are great or not great, that's neither here nor there, or that's a matter of opinion. But you've got all that in the mix. And again, that's not the it's not the first time that's happened with anybody's estate. I mean, the Hendrix estate, for example, was in disarray from the 70s on through the 90s. And then in 1996, the family got control of the stuff again, and they've been consistent. But to me, I don't think that their main concern has never been about, ooh, how do we, keep Jimi Hendrix on TikTok? Ooh, how do we keep... And I know it's the wave of the future. I get that. I get it. But I do see with the Hendrix estate, Frank Zappa's estate, Bob Dylan, Springsteen, their focus is still on that first, second generation because it's about the music. And to be perfectly honest, you're going to discover music if you're a young fan, if you're somebody, regardless of age, it's like, oh, well, I've heard of this Prince. What's Prince? You're going to discover it. If you got to stream it, you'll discover it. Somehow, some way, you'll discover it. Even if you hear it in a film or a TV episode or some show, you go like, who's that? And then you look it up, and it's like, you'll go get an album. You might go get the greatest hits to start off, and then you might start taking a deeper dive. But, it's business is business, and the business is to make money. And like I said, in the case of Prince and the Beatles, it's like, is it at the expense of the first and second generation fans? I get it, mainstream, casual fans, they may not be ready for the vault stuff. You need that greatest hits to draw them in, or you need that landmark, or you need that classic album or that classic period to reel them in. And then once they're in, once they're hooked, then it's like, yeah, have you heard this B-side? Oh, yeah, you heard that short version on the album? Yeah, check out the longer, funkier version on this 12-inch single. That, I think, is kind of the sort of chaos that we're dealing with right now with the estate. Like I said, I would have loved to have had an Around the World in a Day box set. But, like I said, I'm not mad at this. Actually, it is easier for my wallet because there are the Hendrix box set. There's the John Lennon 1-to-1 box set, and not everybody's Sean Lennon, like Sean Lennon thinks outside the box a lot, like some first generation. They still buy the stuff. They still enjoy it. They may have some criticisms here and there, but I would say out of the solo Beatles right now, he's the one that's head and shoulders above the rest now. Because, like I said, the Beatles, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the anthology, but and I am getting the CD with the new 4th volume attached. But that's been a source of controversy. Like I said, I used to pride myself on saying, hey, the Beatles fans, at least they're one big happy group. They haven't been a happy group. They're starting to sound like us Prince fans, because they're not getting everything that they feel that they should need too. And it's like, well, what's this release? What's that release about? But, I'm still going to get Around the World in a Day. Probably for me, I'll do the 2 CD set. I'm leaning towards getting the vinyl as well. Like I said, at least for one thing, this will be a little bit easier on the wallet since there's so much other stuff that's coming out. With folks with bigger sets, that's coming out. Like throwing in some serious vault material. In a lot of cases, vault material, live material. So. It's a little bit easier, and like I said, it will be nice to have the 12-inch singles, like Hello, the long version of that. Been waiting for that for years to pop up on CD. Remastered, She's Always in My Hair, remastered, Raspberry Beret. There are the two versions of For the Tears in Your Eyes. One is the studio version, that was given to the We Are the World album. And then there's the video version. that they played, or Prince, Wendy, and Lisa played or videotaped for use for the Live Aid back in '85, which the audio to that was only available on Prince, the hits and the B-sides. So that'll be good to have both of those in the same place. Because, I mean, I've got the We Are the World album, but, it's like if you just want to hear that particular version, you got to go dig up that album and then go back to your other Prince albums. But now it's nice to have it all in one, in one place now. So, I mean, there is that, but I'm disappointed that that there aren't any vault tracks, attached to it, or live recordings. I know somebody put up a mock-up of what an actual Around the World in a Day box set would look like. And for the Blu-ray, they attached the performance in France, which was during the filming of Under the Cherry Moon. Prince was a little homesick, put the band together, was like, hey, well, we're going to shoot a live version of America. We're going to play, we're going to jam that. And then after they did that for the video, then they did a full concert after that. So, that would have been nice to hear. I know online people put forth a few suggestions of some shows from 1985 that would have worked in a box set as well. But, I don't know. Not everything needs a box set. I would say particularly this album, because it's so soon after Purple Rain. And really, soon as this album dropped, then the sessions for Under the Cherry Moon Parade started. So is it a case of, well, there is material that overlaps, but, probably the only real selling point would be, like I said, Prince's guide vocals for The Family. And that's not enough tracks for that. So would you keep that for some future 50th anniversary of Purple Rain? Would you then stick that onto a Parade box set? So it begs a lot of questions. And this wouldn't be the only period that, you would run into that situation. Prince's 1993 to 1995 era is full of overlap. So you couldn't have a box set. You couldn't have a Gold Experience box set. You couldn't have an Emancipation box set because all that material overlaps. The only thing you could do is come out with a box set and it's just the 1993 to 1995 or 1996 sessions and leave it at that, and then just remaster just the original albums in that case. But there wouldn't be, because there's too much overlap, because there's several songs that, I was going to put it on, nope, I was going to put that on Gold Experience. Nope, save that for Emancipation. Nope, that's not going on Gold Experience. Throw that in the vault. Nope, this song, okay, put it on, nope, take that out. So it's too much confusion and overlap in that case. Other than that, I mean, like I said, for me, I'm still going to get it. And, this thing about boycotting the estate, it's the same ludicrous argument that, comic book movie fans have, like particularly whatever. If you like Henry Cavill and Man of Steel and all of this, let's boycott, the new Superman movie because it's not Henry Cavill. It's like, look, when that movie came out, I enjoyed it. It was a different take on Superman. I enjoyed it. But it wasn't for the expectations of the studio. It didn't make the money that they expected Avengers to have. And that still made enough money for them to try to do Batman versus Superman and so on and so forth. But here we are several years later, 10 years later, and folks are still whining about the Snyder Cut. Yeah, most of that I did enjoy, but I also recognize it wasn't great. It lost the plot. It was, again, a situation where they ended up being way too many hands in it. Had nothing to do with the actors in it, but to execute the narrative. It just didn't work. And I think that's the same thing that's kind of going on with Prince fans. It's like you got a favorite era, you got a favorite album, and that era or that album is not getting the love that you think. But here's the thing, like I said, there's a lot of legacy artists that favorite album. Okay, let's take, if you were living in the 1960s, if you were a teenager or college age in the 1960s, and as you got older and a deeper dive into the artist, you were buying the bootlegs and this and that, and you were anticipating this, anticipating that. Let's take the Jimi Hendrix Bold as Love box set, Jimi Hendrix's second album. Now, they didn't really do box sets for his actual studio albums, but they've come out with 2 career-spanning box sets, a wealth of standalone live albums and videos, compilations of vault material, consistently for decades now. Consistent. So imagine, like I said, you in college or you in high school and you first heard Jimi Hendrix's Axis Bold as Love, and here it is, it's 2025, and you're in your 70s or you're dang near 80 or you're in your early 80s, and you're just now getting it. There's too much stuff, and I'm sure that fan didn't lead a depressing life. I'm sure they had a full and, or had ups and downs in life, but life wasn't so depressing that they were so dependent on that box set, for anything. It's just that it was just a long wait, but nobody was thinking about box sets in the 60s or 70s. That was a very niche market. Not until like the 80s, especially getting into the 90s, where this thing of the box set became reality, because back in the 60s, artists were disposable. Nobody expected the Beatles, at least early on anyway, nobody expected them to last forever, or that, they'd still be listening to them now. Nobody expected to remember Jimi Hendrix like this. We're in a stage now to where it's like we're trying to keep Prince's name out there enough so in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, he can be remembered like they remember certain artists back in the day. But it's going to take time. It's going to take some patience too. And like I said, and especially when you got somebody who has a catalog that vast, it's going to be a long wait for some things. It's going to be a longer wait for other things. I would, as much as I would love to hear everything in the vault, it's just hear everything in the vault. It's just not feasible. As human beings, we aren't built like that. We haven't cracked. We either lost the ability of immortality, or we've lost the information about immortality. But the thing is just enjoy what we got while we're here. And like I said, there was so many situations, so many different hands in the mix, too many cooks in the kitchen. You had the Netflix thing that tied up a bunch of stuff, and that just got let go. So give us some time. Give us some time. Like I said, but this boycotting thing, it's like there's way more important stuff. If you want to boycott, if you think that works, there's way more important stuff going on that need to be shut down than, because you mad because you didn't get your favorite record. At least if you got your old one, you still got that to listen to and hang on to that. Other than that, you get your box set. You will get your box set. But I'm going to end it on that. Like I said, I'm going to dive even deeper into it. So you're going to dive deeper into it with the next 3 episodes about what's going on, and kind of explain more in depth just how things work, or how things are working in a way, depending on which legacy estate I'm talking about. But it's much deeper than we think, or it's not as easy or as simple as you think it might be. So stay tuned for that. So with that, of course, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, become a Patreon supporter. I know every time I want to put together Patreon videos, there's breaking news. So I think hopefully it's all out the way. We got all the artists out the way that that should be dropping something that would that would require me to jump on here in a hurry and talk about it. So, like I said, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, become a Patreon supporter. Let me know what you think about Around the World Today. Do you like the configuration that you're getting now? Do you still wish it was a box set? Do you think Parade is going to get the most attention as a box set starting next year? Leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. And until the next time, create your day, create your life. Peace.